A moment of tenderness. Emma opened her eyes, searching his face. How does it change things? Because you deserve more than a cold transaction, Nathan said softly. His thumb traced her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. You deserve patience and care. Someone who will make this experience something beautiful rather than just another obligation we need to fulfill. Tears threatened to spill over. Emma had expected many things from this night. She had braced herself for duty and discomfort. She had prepared to be treated like a means to an end. But kindness? Compassion? These had not been part of her expectations. Nathan, she whispered, I know what the contract says about producing an heir. We do not have to pretend this is anything more than what it is. The contract can wait, Nathan said firmly. He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. Tonight is not about contracts or obligations. Tonight is about two people who are bound together, learning what that means. Emma's breath caught as Nathan leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. I am scared, she confessed. I know, Nathan murmured. But I promise you, I will be gentle. I will make this good for you. He paused, his forehead resting against hers. But only if you want this. Only if you give me permission to continue. The question hung in the air between them, simple yet profound. Emma realized that Nathan was offering her something she had not expected in this arranged marriage. Choice. Control. Respect. She looked into his eyes and saw beyond the cold businessmen she had met during contract negotiations. She saw a man who understood vulnerability, who knew what it meant to feel powerless. Whatever had shaped him into the guarded person he was, it had not completely destroyed his capacity for compassion. Yes, Emma breathed, the word barely a whisper. You can continue. What followed was unlike anything Emma had imagined. Nathan's touch was reverent, his kisses slow and patient. He took his time, learning every curve of her body as if she were something precious rather than convenient. When there was discomfort, he soothed it with whispered reassurances and gentle caresses. When there was pleasure, he guided her through it with careful attention. The rain continued to fall outside, creating a rhythm that matched the beating of their hearts. The city lights painted patterns across the ceiling as they moved together, creating something neither had expected. Connection. Intimacy. The first fragile threads of something that might become real. Afterward, Emma lay with her head resting on Nathan's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. His arm was wrapped around her, holding her close. For a moment, she could almost believe this was a real marriage built on love rather than necessity. Thank you, Emma whispered into the darkness. For what? Nathan's voice rumbled in his chest beneath her ear. For making me feel like I mattered. Even if it was just for tonight. Nathan's arm tightened around her, pulling her closer. Emma, he said quietly, you do matter. Perhaps more than either of us anticipated when we signed those papers. Emma wanted to ask what he meant. Wanted to explore the strange connection that seemed to be forming between them. But exhaustion claimed her before she could form the words. As sleep pulled her under, Emma's last thought was that maybe this arrangement could become something more than either of them had planned. The morning after and building bridges. The cold morning. Morning arrived with cruel brightness, flooding the penthouse suite with harsh sunlight that seemed to strip away all the intimacy of the previous night. Emma woke slowly, reaching across the bed for Nathan, but her hand found only cold sheets. He was gone. She sat up, clutching the blanket to her chest, and spotted him across the room. Nathan was fully dressed in an expensive charcoal suit, his attention fixed on the laptop balanced on the mahogany desk. Gone was the gentle man who had held her through the night. In his place sat the ruthless businessman she had met during contract negotiations. All sharp edges and cold efficiency. Emma's heart sank. She had known this might happen, had warned herself not to read too much into last night, but the disappointment still cut deep. Good morning, Emma ventured, her voice uncertain in the quiet room. Nathan glanced up briefly, his expression unreadable. Morning. There is coffee and breakfast on the table. We have a flight to catch in 3 hours. The dismissive tone stung more than Emma wanted to admit. She slipped out of bed, wrapping herself in the silk robe before padding to the sitting area where an elaborate breakfast spread waited. Her hands shook as she poured coffee, trying to process the whiplash of his changed demeanor. About last night, Emma began, setting down her cup carefully. What about it? Nathan's voice was clipped, professional, as if they were discussing a business meeting rather than their wedding night. Emma's cheeks burned with embarrassment and anger. I thought we should talk about what happened. About what it meant. Nathan finally looked at her fully, his steel-gray eyes cold and distant. It meant we fulfilled one aspect of our agreement. Nothing more. The contract clearly states the expectations for our arrangement. In public, we present as a devoted couple. In private, we maintain appropriate boundaries. The words hit like physical blows. Emma stood abruptly, anger flooding through her veins. Appropriate boundaries? After what we shared last night, you are reducing it to contract terms? We shared a night, Emma. Do not romanticize it into something it was not. Nathan closed his laptop with a decisive click. I have built my life on clear agreements and realistic expectations. Last night was pleasant, but it does not change the fundamental nature of our arrangement. Pleasant. The word tasted like poison. Emma felt something break inside her chest. You held me like I was precious. You asked for my permission. You made me feel things I have never felt before, and now you are treating it like a business transaction? I showed you courtesy and respect, which I will continue to do, Nathan said, his voice carefully controlled. But I will not lie to you or myself by pretending this is a love match. We both knew what we were getting into when we signed those papers. Emma laughed bitterly, the sound harsh in the quiet room. I knew I was entering a marriage of convenience. I did not expect my husband to be cruel enough to act like our wedding night meant nothing. Nathan's jaw clenched, the only sign that her words had any effect. He stood, crossing the room until he was directly in front of her. Up close, Emma could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. Something was hurting him, but he was burying it beneath layers of ice. I am not being cruel, Nathan said quietly. I am being honest. It is better this way. Trust me. Trust you? Emma repeated. How can I trust someone who changes completely overnight? Who is the real you, Nathan? The man who made love to me with such tenderness, or this cold stranger who cannot even look me in the eye? The honeymoon villa. The villa in Santorini should have been paradise. Perched on a cliff overlooking the Aegean Sea, all white stone and endless blue views, it was the kind of place people dreamed about for their honeymoons. But the tension between Emma and Nathan transformed the beautiful location into a gilded cage. They moved around each other like polite strangers, maintaining a facade even though no one was watching. Emma spent her days exploring the narrow streets of local villages, losing herself in markets filled with handmade pottery and vibrant flowers. She photographed everything with her phone, capturing moments of genuine joy in the smiles of local children and the brilliant colors of sunset over the water. Photography had always been Emma's escape, a way to find beauty even in difficult circumstances. Through her lens, she could control what she saw, frame the world in ways that made sense. Now, she used it to avoid thinking about the man who shared her villa but felt 1,000 miles away. Nathan remained tethered to his work. Conference calls at odd hours, emails that demanded immediate attention, spreadsheets that seemed more important than the wife sitting across from him at dinner. Emma watched him retreat further into his carefully constructed walls, and it broke her heart a little more each day. On the fourth night, unable to sleep, Emma wandered into the villa's library. She ran her fingers along the spines of books, finding comfort in their presence. Books had always been her sanctuary, growing up surrounded by them in her father's shop. It was there that Nathan found her, still dressed in his business shirt despite the late hour. "Cannot sleep?" he asked, his voice neutral but not unkind. "The bed is too big and too empty," Emma replied honestly, then immediately regretted her vulnerability. Nathan was silent for a moment, then moved to a shelf beside her. He pulled down a leather-bound volume, and Emma noticed his hands trembled slightly as he opened it. Inside were not pages of text, but photographs. Black and white images of stunning quality, capturing raw human emotion in ways that took Emma's breath away. A secret revealed. "You took these?" Emma gasped, moving closer to see better. The photographs were extraordinary. An elderly fisherman's weathered hands mending nets, the lines telling stories of decades at sea. A child's laughter caught in perfect clarity, joy radiating from the image. A woman at a market, her eyes holding both sadness and strength. "Before I understood that art does not pay bills or build empires," Nathan said, his voice bitter and self-mocking. Emma studied each photograph with growing awe. "These are extraordinary, Nathan. Why did you stop?" Nathan closed the book abruptly, his jaw tight. "Someone I trusted told me they were worthless. That I was wasting my time on childish dreams. She was probably right." "She?" Emma looked up at him, seeing past his defenses for the first time since their wedding night. Nathan moved to the window, staring out at the dark sea. The moonlight cast shadows across his face, making him look older, more tired. "Victoria Shaw. My fiancée, years ago. We were engaged for 2 years. I thought she understood me, supported my dreams. I was planning to open an art gallery, combine my business sense with my passion for photography." "What happened?" Emma asked softly, though she had a feeling she already knew the answer. "I came home early one day and found her in bed with my business partner." Nathan's voice was flat, emotionless, as if he were reciting facts from a report. "When I confronted them, she laughed. Said I was boring, that my photographs were amateur garbage, and that she had only stayed with me for my money and connections. She tore up my portfolio right in front of me. Every print I had carefully made, destroyed." Emma's heart ached for him. She moved closer, placing her hand gently on his arm. "Nathan, I am so sorry. Do not be." He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was raw and real. "She taught me a valuable lesson. Passion makes you vulnerable. Art makes you weak. Better to focus on what can be measured and controlled. Money, power, success. And love?" Emma asked softly. "Where does that fit in your controlled world?" Nathan's hand covered hers, his grip tight. "Love is the biggest liability of all. It gives people power to destroy you." Understanding dawned on Emma. Nathan's coldness the morning after their wedding night had not been about her. It had been about fear. He had let his guard down, allowed himself to feel something real, and it terrified him. So he retreated behind the walls he had built to protect himself from being hurt again. "Not everyone is Victoria," Emma said firmly. "Not every person you let in will hurt you." "How do I know you are different?" Nathan challenged. "We barely know each other, Emma. This marriage is a transaction. At least that is honest." "Is it though?" Emma countered. "Because last night when you made love to me, that was not transactional. That was real. And it terrified you so much that you have been running ever since. Building a bridge." Nathan turned to face her fully, and Emma saw the battle raging inside him. Fear against hope. Past against future. "What if I let you in and you become the weapon that destroys me? What if I care and you decide I am not enough, just like she did? What if you push me away and spend your life wondering what could have been?" Emma replied. "What if the real tragedy is not risking your heart, but building walls so high that nothing real can ever reach you?" They stood in silence, the waves crashing against the cliffs below providing the only sound. Then Nathan did something unexpected. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph he had taken that morning. It was Emma in the village market, laughing with a flower vendor, sunlight catching in her honey-brown hair. The composition was perfect, the lighting beautiful. But more than that, the image captured a joy that Emma had not even realized she was feeling. "I have been photographing you all week," Nathan admitted quietly. "I cannot seem to help myself. You find beauty in everything, Emma. You make me want to see the world through a lens again instead of through profit margins." Emma's breath caught. "Then why do you keep pushing me away?" "Because I am scared." The admission seemed to cost him something. "Because caring about you means you can hurt me. And I do not know if I can survive that kind of pain again." Emma took both his hands in hers, holding them tightly. "I cannot promise I will never hurt you. People hurt each other sometimes, even when they love each other. But I can promise that I will never mock your dreams or tear apart what matters to you. I can promise that if you let me in, I will fight for us with everything I have." Nathan searched her face, and Emma could see the moment he made his choice. He leaned down and kissed her, and it was different from their wedding night. Less careful, more desperate, as if he was trying to pour all his conflicted emotions into that single connection. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "I do not know how to do this. How to be open. How to trust." "Then we learn together," Emma whispered. "One day at a time." A new beginning. That night, they did not make love, but they held each other as they slept. It was a different kind of intimacy, born of emotional vulnerability rather than physical passion. And when Emma woke to find Nathan still there, his arms wrapped around her, she felt the first real spark of hope that their marriage could become something true. The next morning, Nathan canceled his conference calls. Instead, he took Emma to a secluded beach, bringing his old camera with him. He taught her about light and composition, showing her how he saw the world through his lens. Emma shared her own photographs, the ones she had been too shy to show anyone before. "You have real talent," Nathan said, studying an image she had captured of fishing boats at dawn. "Have you ever thought about pursuing photography professionally?" "My father needed me at the bookstore," Emma replied. "There was never time or money for art school." "What if there was time now?" Nathan asked. "What if I helped you?" Emma looked at him suspiciously. "Why would you do that?" "Because Victoria was wrong," Nathan said firmly. "Art is not weakness. It is courage. And maybe if I help you chase your dreams, I will remember how to chase mine again." Something shifted between them in that moment. The transaction started to feel like a partnership. The arrangement began to resemble a marriage. They spent the rest of the week actually talking, sharing stories from their childhoods, laughing at terrible jokes, slowly building something that resembled friendship. And beneath it all, Emma felt the fragile roots of love beginning to take hold in soil that had seemed too rocky to support anything real. Nathan was still guarded, still scarred by his past, but he was trying. And for now, that was enough. True love emerges. The formal dinner. On their last night before returning home, Nathan and Emma attended a formal dinner at an exclusive resort on the island. Emma wore an emerald green dress that Nathan had chosen for her, and she had to admit she felt beautiful. The silk fabric draped perfectly, complementing her honey-brown eyes and making her feel like she truly belonged in his world. As they entered the grand ballroom, all eyes turned to them. Emma felt Nathan's hands settle at the small of her back, warm and possessive. He played his role perfectly, the attentive husband, but Emma noticed something different now. The touch was not just for show. When he leaned in to whisper in her ear, his breath warm against her skin, there was genuine warmth in his voice. When he introduced her to business associates, there was unmistakable pride in his tone. "Your wife is lovely," an older gentleman commented, shaking Nathan's hand. You are a lucky man. For the first time, Nathan did not deflect with a polite platitude. Instead, he looked at Emma with something that made her heart skip. I am beginning to realize just how lucky. Later, as they danced, Emma felt truly content for the first time since their wedding. Nathan held her close, moving with surprising grace to the classical music filling the ballroom. The chandeliers cast golden light across the polished floor, and Emma felt like she was living in a dream. You are different tonight, Emma observed, looking up at him. So are you, Nathan replied. You hold your head higher. You meet their stares with confidence instead of shrinking away. I have a good teacher, Emma said softly. Someone who is showing me that I am allowed to take up space in the world. Nathan's hand tightened on her waist. Emma, I need to tell you something. When we get home, there is going to be pressure about the contract terms. The board has already started making comments about heirs and family legacy. Emma's stomach clenched. I see. But I want you to know that I will not pressure you, Nathan continued firmly. What happens between us in private will be our choice, not because of some contract clause. I will not make that mistake again. Emma looked up at him, seeing the sincerity in his steel-gray eyes. She took a breath, gathering her courage. What if I told you that I want to try? Not because of the contract, but because I want to build a real marriage with you. A real family. Nathan stopped dancing right there in the middle of the floor. People moved around them, but he seemed oblivious to everything except Emma's face. You mean that? I do, Emma said. You are not perfect, Nathan. You are guarded and sometimes you hurt me when you are scared. But I see who you are beneath all that armor. And I want to know that person better. I want us to have a chance at something real. Nathan kissed her then, in front of everyone, with a passion that left no doubt about his feelings. When they finally broke apart, the room had gone silent, everyone staring. Nathan smiled, that rare genuine smile that transformed his whole face and made him look years younger. Let them talk, he said. I am done hiding what I feel. They left the dinner early, unable to wait any longer. Back at the villa, Nathan made love to Emma with the same tenderness as their wedding night, but this time there was no fear of the morning after. This time, they both knew it meant something real and lasting. Coming home. The return to everyday life should have been jarring, but Nathan and Emma fell into a rhythm that surprised them both. Nathan still worked long hours, but he came home for dinner. They cooked together, laughing when Emma burned the pasta or when Nathan added too much salt to the sauce. They talked about everything and nothing, learning each other's quirks and habits. Emma enrolled in photography classes at a local art institute, something Nathan insisted on paying for. She protested at first, not wanting to be dependent on him, but he reminded her that marriage was about partnership. Her dreams mattered as much as his business ventures. Nathan started taking his camera out again, capturing the world around him with fresh eyes. On weekends, he and Emma would explore the city together, both with cameras in hand, seeing who could find the most interesting shots. It became their private game, their shared passion. 2 weeks after returning home, Emma woke feeling violently ill. She barely made it to the bathroom before her stomach rebelled. Nathan found her there, pale and shaking, and immediately went into protective mode. I am calling the doctor, he said firmly, already reaching for his phone. It is probably just something I ate, Emma protested weakly, but even as she said it, a suspicion began to form in her mind. The doctor arrived within the hour, one of the benefits of Nathan's wealth and connections. After a brief examination and some quick tests, the news came that changed everything. Congratulations, the doctor said with a warm smile. You are pregnant, about 6 weeks along. The announcement. Emma stared at the doctor in shock, then at Nathan, whose face had gone completely blank. She could not read his expression, could not tell if this news pleased or terrified him. How far along did you say? Nathan asked, his voice carefully controlled. About 6 weeks, the doctor repeated. Right around the time of your wedding, I would guess. Congratulations to you both. After the doctor left, Emma and Nathan sat in silence. Emma's mind raced with 1,000 thoughts. They had just started to build something real. Was it too soon? Would this push Nathan back behind his walls? Would he think she had trapped him somehow? Finally, Emma spoke, her voice trembling. I know this is fast. I know we are still figuring things out. But Nathan, I want this baby. I want our family. Nathan was quiet for so long that Emma's heart started to sink. Then he stood and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. His whole body was shaking. I am terrified, Nathan admitted, his voice rough with emotion. I am scared I will be a terrible father. That I will mess this up like I mess up everything that matters. Emma pulled back to look at him, surprised to see tears in his eyes. You will not. I will not let you. We do this together. We learn together, just like we have been doing. Nathan placed his hand on her still flat stomach, wonder and fear warring in his expression. A baby. Our baby. Yes, Emma said softly. Our baby. For the first time since his confession about Victoria, Emma saw Nathan cry. Tears slid down his face as he knelt before her, pressing his forehead against her stomach. The gesture was so tender, so vulnerable, that Emma felt her own tears begin to fall. I promise I will be better, Nathan said, his voice breaking. I will be the father this child deserves. The husband you deserve. Emma ran her fingers through his dark hair, her own tears falling freely. You already are, Nathan. You just need to believe it. The transformation. The pregnancy transformed Nathan in ways Emma had not anticipated. The man who once lived in his office now came home early to accompany her to prenatal appointments. He read every book on parenting he could find, his bedside table stacked with volumes about child development, birthing techniques, and infant care. He took meticulous notes during their birthing classes, asking more questions than any other father there. Emma watched him paint the nursery walls a soft yellow, his movements careful and precise, and fell in love with him a little more each day. He had turned the spare room into a haven for their child, complete with hand-built shelves for books and a rocking chair positioned perfectly by the window. They still had difficult moments. Sometimes Nathan's walls would go up without warning, triggered by fears he could not always articulate. But Emma had learned to be patient, to give him space when he needed it and to push when pushing was required. Slowly, painfully, they were building something real from the transactional foundation they had started with. Emma was 5 months pregnant, her belly round and prominent, when the past came calling. She was at home, reviewing photographs from her latest class, when Nathan called from his office. His voice sounded strange, tight with an emotion she could not identify. Emma, I need to tell you something, he said. Victoria showed up at my office today. Emma's blood ran cold. What did she want? Money, mostly. She heard about our marriage, about the baby. She is threatening to go to the press with stories about our past, claim I wronged her somehow. Nathan's voice was bitter. She wants to be paid to stay quiet. That is blackmail, Emma said, anger flooding through her. I know. But Emma, there is more. She said things about you, about our marriage being a sham, about the baby being a scheme to secure my fortune. She is going to try to destroy what we have built. A test of love. Emma took a deep breath, placing her hand on her belly where their child grew. Let her try. We know the truth, Nathan. We know what we have is real. You are not angry? Nathan sounded surprised. I am furious, Emma admitted. But not at you. You cannot control what Victoria does. You can only control how we respond. And we respond by living our truth, by being the family we are becoming, by not letting her poison what we have built. There was a long pause, then Nathan's voice came through the phone, thick with emotion. I do not deserve you. Yes, you do, Emma said firmly. You deserve love and happiness and a family. You deserve all of it, Nathan. And I will fight anyone who tries to tell you otherwise, including Victoria. That evening, Nathan came home early. He found Emma in the nursery, folding tiny clothes they had purchased over the weekend. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands settling over hers on her pregnant belly. I love you, Nathan said quietly. It was the first time he had said those words. Emma turned in his arms, tears streaming down her face. I love you too. I think I have loved you since that first night when you asked for my permission, when you treated me like I mattered. You have always mattered, Nathan said, cupping her face in his hands. From the very beginning, you mattered. I was just too afraid to admit it. They dealt with Victoria together. Nathan refused to pay her demands and instead released a simple statement to the press about his past relationship and current happiness. The tabloids had their moment of excitement, but it faded quickly when no scandal materialized. Victoria disappeared back into whatever life she had built, and Nathan and Emma moved forward. The final chapter. 3 months later, Emma went into labor on a Tuesday afternoon. Nathan was in a board meeting when his phone rang, but he abandoned the room without explanation when he saw Emma's name on the screen. He drove home breaking probably a dozen traffic laws, his heart pounding with fear and excitement. The labor was long and difficult. Nathan held Emma's hand through every contraction, whispered encouragement during every push, and cried when their daughter finally entered the world. She was perfect, tiny and red-faced and screaming with healthy lungs. She is beautiful, Nathan whispered, staring at the baby in Emma's arms with absolute wonder. She is perfect. What should we name her? Emma asked, exhausted but glowing with happiness. Nathan thought for a moment, then smiled. Grace. Because Grace brought us together, and Grace is what we will teach her to carry into the world. Emma smiled through her tears. Grace Westbrook. It is perfect. As Nathan held his daughter for the first time, Emma watched the final walls around his heart crumble. He looked at their child with such pure love that Emma knew everything they had been through had been worth it. The contract that brought them together no longer mattered. What mattered